And welcome to this last episode of Escaping COVID-19 by Bike. That's the story of my trip from northern Sweden, Umeå, to Switzerland, Lausanne, by bicycle. So last time I was near Frankfurt in Germany, and so I can show you some videos of that. That's a cemetery. That's where you get your water from, and protect yourself from rain when it's raining. Going down, that's where I had my first flat of the trip, first and only flat. My rear wheel burst. I had to push my bike because I didn't have the right key to open the wheel. It was a bit of a difficulty there. So that's the one of the last village, the last day in Germany before crossing the border to France. So I was quite happy to be back in France. It had been quite a few years. So it felt a bit like home as well because of my native language. So that's the first village in France I've been through. It's different from Germany. The architecture, you can always spot some differences, and that's in the region of France called Alsace, so it's influenced greatly by Germany in the design, but still it's quite different. I felt like arriving on an electric bike. I felt like arriving south already, just being there from Germany. So yeah, that's a typical, I would say, small town in Alsace. You see on the left here with the walls designs, what's called in French colombage. And of course, many bikes around because the weather was good. My guess, I don't really remember the day of the week it was. My guess is that it was maybe the weekend as well. Of course, when I started, there was no bicycles whatsoever because it was too cold or wet or snowy, or it wasn't a good weather for bicycling. But now everybody seems to be out and enjoying the bikes. You can see the architecture here quite clearly. So down France, I stopped for a few days at France's place in beautiful Strasbourg before continuing by the Rhine River south towards Switzerland, Basel in Switzerland. So that was quite a long way, quite always the same landscape with the Rhine River, blue skies, and not so many people around. Isn't it beautiful? So that's the first view of Basel, or Bâle as we say in French, where I stayed as well for a few days with my brother. We went swimming in the Rhine, so the Rhine carries you downstream quite quickly. So you start by a museum dedicated to the artist Tingley, and you swim for, like, you don't really need to swim, you just go, let the current take you downstream. It lasts for maybe 10 to 15 minutes and you're down, you cross the whole city. It's a good way to get to know the city. Crossing its bridges. That's, I think, one of the oldest, or the oldest bridge on the Rhine. So from Basel, after a few days rest, I continued towards Lausanne, so that's leaving Basel. You cross this bridge, and except it's the architecture, the wood used is pretty amazing. Not sure I like the tagging around, but you've got to admire this architecture. So I continued, discovered places I've never seen in Switzerland, I think, and then I went by the lakes, and that's around where I crossed to the French part of Switzerland. So I was almost back home. So that's going down to Lausanne. You've got a view of the lake and the mountains, and going like really in Lausanne, you still see the lake. So now I'm back home. I might still do some videos about my gear, for instance, like my bike. I'll show you my 3-gear bike, or other things like that. Tell me what you want if you want videos about anything.